Before today's video starts, we just want to note that all the people featured in this video are considered suspects and they have not been convicted of the crimes they are accused of committing. They are all considered innocent until they have been proven guilty in a court of law. Number 3. Lucy Letby. In May 2017, the Countess of Chester Hospital in Chester, England noticed an unusual spike in deaths and collapses between March 2015 and July 2016 in their unit where premature babies and infants with special needs are housed. A collapse is when a newborn's health declines in a severe manner, but the child ultimately survives. They also noticed that when the infants did collapse, they were much harder to revive. Several staff members said that some newborns that they normally would have been able to revive did not survive their collapse. When the infants did die, they couldn't find a cause of death. They also found strange blotches on their skin that they couldn't explain. So the hospital got the police to investigate the deaths. On July 3, 2018, about 14 months after they first started looking into the deaths, the police arrested 28-year-old neonatal nurse Lucy Letby on suspicion of killing 8 infants and attempting to murder 6 other infants. Letby had been hired on at the Countess of Chester Hospital in 2011 after she received a degree in children's nursing. Her friends and family were shocked by the arrest. They thought she loved her job. She seemed like she was deeply devoted to helping children. Notably, she was active in fundraising for the new neonatal unit. After she was arrested, the police expanded their investigation. They began to look at 17 more deaths and 15 more non-fatal collapses. Liverpool Women's Hospital also said that they would review their records because Letby had done some training at that hospital. Officials at Liverpool Women's Hospital said that they do not suspect that any of their patients were harmed and they are just cooperating with the police. Letby was released on bail about 72 hours after she was arrested. Because of the ongoing investigation, Letby may face more charges in the future. If she is convicted of the 8 murders, she would be one of the most prolific child killers in Britain's history. But since Letby has not been convicted, she is considered innocent until proven otherwise in court. Number 2. Juan Carlos Hernandez and Patricia Hernandez. Ecatepec is a suburb of Mexico City. With a population of 1.6 million people, it's Mexico's most populous suburb. For years, Ecatepec has been plagued by violent crime, especially towards females. According to the statistics, in 2017, a girl or a woman was murdered once every 30 hours. Despite murder being commonplace in the suburb, news emerged from the area in the autumn of 2018 that shocked the citizens of Mexico. The series of crimes first emerged in the spring of 2018. On the morning of April 25th, 23-year-old Arlette Holguin dropped off her son at school. On her way home, she stopped off at a tamale stand. At around noon, Holguin's mother received a call saying that Holguin had not dropped off her daughter for her kindergarten class. Holguin's mother went to the house where Holguin and her 3 children lived. Holguin's son was still at school, but her 2 other children were home alone eating tamales. Holguin was nowhere to be found. Her family thought that this was odd because they knew she would never abandon her children. So her family reported her missing. The police investigated the disappearance, but progress was slow. For example, it took 2 months to get Olga's cell phone records. Their investigation did not turn up any leads to the whereabouts of Olga or any suspects who may have been involved in her disappearance. About 3 months after Olga went missing, on the morning of July 26, 29-year-old Evelyn Rojas left her 2 kids with her ex-husband. She said she was going out to meet a woman who was going to sell her some discounted children's clothes. She didn't return to pick up her kids, so she was reported missing. About 5 weeks later, on September 6, Nancy Hutron walked out of her home with her 3 children. Hutron dropped off 2 of her daughters at school, and then she should have returned home. But she never made it back home. Later that afternoon, her family was alerted that she didn't pick up her daughters from elementary school. So her family reported her and her infant daughter, Valentina, missing. Her family wanted the police to issue an Amber Alert for Valentina, but they refused. The police said that since Valentina was with her mother, she wasn't a kidnapped child. In the weeks after Hutron's disappearance, the police continued to investigate the disappearance of all 3 women. Eventually, they were able to get the phone records of all 3 women. When they looked through the phone records, they saw that all 3 women had contact with the same married couple, 33-year-old Juan Carlos Hernandez and 28-year-old Patricia Hernandez. Juan Carlos and Patricia had met in a bar 10 years earlier. Patricia worked as a waitress in the bar, and Juan Carlos was a customer. One day, he asked her out, and they started dating. They eventually got married, and they had 4 children. On October 4th, 2018, Juan Carlos and Patricia were walking down the road with a baby stroller. The police had them under surveillance, and they thought that Nancy Hutron's missing baby, Valentina, might be in the stroller. They stopped the couple, and immediately they noticed that there wasn't a baby in the stroller. Instead, in the stroller, there was a plastic garbage bag that was emitting a terrible smell. The police looked inside the bag, and they found body parts in it. The couple was arrested, and the police searched the home that they shared with their 4 children. They found even more body parts. They were found in 8 buckets that had been filled with cement. Other body parts were found wrapped in plastic and stored in a refrigerator. Even more body parts were found on abandoned properties not far from the couple's home. The police interviewed Juan Carlos and Patricia, and they both made shocking confessions. Juan Carlos gave the details on 10 murders, but he said that he and Patricia had killed 20 women. He said that the first murder happened on January 10, 2012, about 6.5 years before they were arrested. They had lured 26-year-old Fabiola Lunquin Reyes into their house with the promise of a job. The couple told Reyes that they were going to hire her to clean their house. Instead, Juan Carlos attacked her and dismembered the body. After that first murder, the couple started to lure single mothers into their home with the promise of selling them discounted children's clothes. Once they were inside the home, Juan Carlos would attack them. Sometimes, he would sexually assault them before and after death. Once they were dead, Juan Carlos would dismember the bodies. They sold some of their victims' bones to practitioners of the religion Santeria. They had also sold Valentina, Nancy Hutron's missing baby. The police were able to track down Valentina, and she was unharmed. They gave the baby to Hutron's mother. Besides selling the bones, Juan Carlos and Patricia also used the meat of their victims. Sometimes they fed it to their dogs. Both of them also admitted that Patricia cooked it and they ate it. After they were interviewed by the police, Juan Carlos and Patricia were examined by doctors. Juan Carlos told the doctors that when he was young, his mother would dress him in girls' clothes and force him to watch her have sex with different men. He also suffered a severe head injury when he was 10 years old. The doctors determined that Patricia has an intellectual disability. Both Juan Carlos and Patricia were ordered to stand trial, which will probably happen in 2019. Number 1. Bruce McArthur. Skandaraj Navaratnam moved from Sri Lanka to Toronto, Ontario, Canada as a refugee. In Sri Lanka, Navaratnam had to hide the fact that he was gay, but in Canada, he was free to live the lifestyle he wanted to. He frequented gay bars, and he was well known in Toronto's gay community. In 2010, he was working for a landscaping company. On the night of September 6, 2010, Navaratnam, who was 40, left a gay bar in Toronto with a man his friends didn't recognize. That was the last time his friends saw him. He was reported missing not long afterward. His friends plastered missing persons posters around Toronto, but the posters didn't lead to any tips regarding his whereabouts. Abdul Bazir Fawzi was born in Afghanistan, but at some point he moved to Iran. He later immigrated to Canada, and he moved into a neighborhood in Brampton, which is a suburban city that is part of the Greater Toronto Area. He was married and he had 2 daughters. He worked as an assistant machine operator at a printing company in Mississauga, which is another city in the Greater Toronto Area. On November 29, 2010, Fawzi went to work. At the end of his shift, he called his wife and he said he was going out for a beer and then he would come home. But he didn't come home that night, and his wife reported him missing. The police investigated the disappearance, and they discovered that Fawzi was living a double life. He liked to frequent gay bars and bathhouses in Toronto. On the night that he went missing, he had paid a visit to a bathhouse in Toronto's gay village. 2 weeks after he went missing, his car was found abandoned about 2 miles from where he was last seen. The police thought that Fawzi abandoned his family and he didn't want to be found. His wife believed the police, and she ended up filing for divorce while he was missing. Majid Kayam, his wife, and their 2 children came to Canada in the late 1980s. They left their native Afghanistan to escape the devastation of the Soviet-Afghan War. In 2002, Kayam and his wife divorced, and Kayam started living life as an openly gay man. His family last saw him at a wedding on October 18, 2012. After they lost contact with him, they reported the 58-year-old missing. In November 2012, the police formed a task force called Project Houston to investigate the disappearance of the 3 men. But about 18 months later, the task force was disbanded without finding any answers as to what happened to the men. On August 22, 2014, about 4 months after the task force was dissolved, another man was reported missing. The family of 50-year-old Suresh Mahmoodi, an Iranian immigrant, had not seen him in about a week. At the time, the police weren't sure if his disappearance was connected to the other 3 disappearances. Mahmoodi had been married for over 10 years, and he didn't appear to be connected to Toronto's gay village. But the police did learn that before he got married, Mahmoodi was in a long-term relationship with a transgendered woman. Nevertheless, no trace of Mahmoudi was found. Krishnu Kumar Kannaratham arrived in Canada in August 2010. He was a Tamil and he was fleeing Sri Lanka. He and hundreds of other Tamils had boarded a rickety ship in Thailand, and 3 months later, they arrived in British Columbia. He was denied refugee status, so he went into hiding. Kannaratham eventually settled in Toronto. His family last spoke to him over the phone in August 2015. After that, they lost contact with him, but they were worried about reporting him missing because he was hiding so that he didn't get deported. Sometime between May 2016 and July 2017, 47-year-old Dean Leslewick went missing. Leslewick was different from the other men who went missing because he was born in Canada. He grew up in foster care, and for most of his adult life, he was addicted to drugs and he was homeless. He identified as bisexual, and at times, he was a sex worker. Because of his lifestyle, Leslewick was never reported missing. The last time he checked into a homeless shelter was on April 26, 2016. In 2013, Turkish-born Salim Essen moved to Canada so that he and his boyfriend could get married. They did get married, but the marriage didn't last. One reason their marriage fell apart was because Essen had a drug problem. The police said that after Essen and his husband separated, he lived a transient lifestyle. He was well known around Toronto's gay village. He was reported missing after he was last seen on April 15, 2017. Andrew Kinsman was a well-known LGBTQ activist who worked and volunteered with 2 AIDS foundations in Toronto. The 49-year-old went missing shortly after the 2017 Pride Parade. The last time any of his friends or family saw him was on July 26th. He was reported missing within 72 hours of his disappearance, and the police started investigating his disappearance right away. Because they had started investigating so quickly, the police said they found crucial evidence that they may not have been able to collect had they began investigating days later. In August 2017, about a month after Kinsman disappeared, the police started a second task force called Project Prism. Sometime in late August and early September 2017, 66-year-old Bruce McArthur came to the attention of the task force. The police haven't explained precisely how McArthur came to their attention, but he was connected to 2 of the missing men. McArthur ran a landscaping company, and he employed and dated both Skandaraj Navaradam, the first man to disappear, and Andrew Kinsman, the 8th man who vanished. McArthur had also worked as a mall Santa Claus, and his nickname in the gay community was Santa. The police got warrants for records from several websites and apps that were used by some of the missing men and McArthur. The police also put McArthur under surveillance. At the end of September 2017, McArthur sold an old van. The police were able to get a warrant and they searched the van. Inside the van, they found some blood. They had the blood tested and discovered it belonged to Andrew Kinsman. The police stepped up their surveillance on McArthur, and they continued to look for evidence that connected him to the 8 missing men. On January 17, 2018, the police found 2 pieces of evidence that definitively linked McArthur to the murders of Essen and Kinsman. The police have not said what the 2 pieces of evidence are, but they said they are crucial. The day after the 2 pieces of evidence were found, a man went to McArthur's apartment. The police decided it was best not to put the man in danger, and they forced their way into his apartment. They found the man tied to a bed. McArthur was charged with first-degree murder in the deaths of Essen and Kinsman. The police then got a warrant to search a property where McArthur worked and stored his tools. Scattered throughout the property, they found dismembered body parts in planters' boxes. After finding the body parts, the police searched about 100 properties that McArthur did maintenance on. They did not find any more body parts on those properties. Then they started to search the ravine behind the house where the body parts were found in the planters' boxes. They found even more human remains. Around the property and in the ravine, they found remains from all 8 missing men. The police have not made public how the 8 men were killed. After McArthur was arrested, the police were criticized for not arresting him during the investigation conducted by the first task force. McArthur dated the first victim, and he also employed him. Yet, he wasn't even a suspect during the first investigation. They were accused of not properly investigating the disappearances because the victims were marginalized people. Some people think that McArthur may have killed more than the 8 men that he is accused of killing. Several criminologists said that if McArthur just killed the 8 men between 2010 and 2016, then he started killing much later in life compared to most serial killers. Most serial killers start murdering people when they are in their 20s. When McArthur was in his 20s, 14 gay men in Toronto were murdered, and 7 of the murders were never solved. When the murder started, McArthur was 23, and he had recently married his high school girlfriend. They lived in the Toronto area, and McArthur worked at the Eden Centre, which is downtown. The Eden Centre is just a few blocks from Toronto's gay village. The first of the 7 unsolved murders happened on the 18th of February, 1975. 52-year-old Harold Walkley, a part-time lecturer at the University of Toronto, was found nude and stabbed to death in his apartment. 10 months later, on December 20th, 1975, 32-year-old Frederick Fontaine was found with a severe head injury in the washroom of a bar in Toronto's gay village. He had been severely beaten with a blunt object. He died 7 months later in the hospital. On February 11, 1976, 2 months after Fontaine was attacked, 32-year-old James Douglas Taylor was found dead in his apartment. He had been beaten to death with a baseball bat. On September 20th, 1976, 59-year-old James Kennedy was found strangled to death in his apartment. His killer had strangled him with a bath towel. The rest of 1976 was quiet. Then on January 25th, 1977, 25-year-old Brian Lataki was found murdered in his bed. He had been tied to the bed, strangled, and stabbed. On September 20th, 1978, 29-year-old club owner Alexander Romeo LeBlanc was found bleeding to death in his apartment. He had been stabbed more than 100 times from his head to his toes. He was somehow still alive after the attack, and he was rushed to the hospital. But he was pronounced dead not long afterward. Besides the savagery, what is notable about the murder is that LeBlanc was killed 2 years to the date of the murder of James Kennedy, the 4th victim. 2 months later, on November 28, 1978, the sister of 25-year-old William Duncan Robinson called the police. Robinson had not gone to work for the past 2 days, and his sister asked for officers to go check on him. The police went to his apartment, and they found him stabbed to death. It is believed that 2 nights before his body was found, he went to a gay bar. He then returned home with his killer. After that, the murders of gay men in Toronto came to a stop. When the 3-year murder spree came to an end, McArthur was 26 years old. Around the time the murder stopped, McArthur had left his job at the Eaton Centre and he became a salesman who traveled around the province of Ontario. So it may be possible that between 1978 and 2010, when the murders that McArthur is accused of committing began, he may have claimed other victims around Ontario. However, as of right now, that is just speculation. The police are currently looking to see if McArthur was involved in the 7 murders committed between 1975 and 1978 in Toronto. He is expected to go to trial for the murders of the 8 men killed between 2010 and 2017 and early 2020. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Hopefully you found it interesting. If you did, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe for more videos just like it. Also, please go to criminallylisted.com where you can suggest cases, buy merch, and find out about an exclusive podcast. But that's all for today. Thank you again for watching.